Okay, I'm here. I hope this was worth me leaving second-row seats for the Olympics Parisi Squares tournament, not to mention the two Ryzen twins that were with me.
You agree we need to get a primetime out. It's been months.
Yes, but without Kirkfat, we don't have an entire show.
Exactly. That's what I called you down here for.
Well, I went along with the Mirror Universe idea. I said okay when you wanted Morn to replace me. It'll be funny, you said.
I know. And the time I said you should beat the hell out of me.
That one was actually inspired, but I see where we're going. Do you really think you can fool anyone?
I swear. It's foolproof. I just have to polish him up a bit, but you'll get the idea. Watch this.
Hello, So Community. Hello, So Community. Hello, So Community.
See? Are you going to tell me that our audience will know the difference?
Hello, So Community. Hello, So Community.
He's gonna have to say more than that.
Worry not. I've programmed to do an entire segment on Foundry triggers. Watch this. Kirkfat. Access primetime file Captain 3 Alpha.
Command codes verified.
In this tutorial, I'm going to talk about branching and the various tricks that you can do to add branching in your mission using triggers, god damn it, and pop-up dialogues. I'll kill you!
Warning.
I'm impressed. It's just like Kirkfat. No one will ever know.
I can fix it. Honest. He did it perfectly 30 minutes ago. Wait, I just have to tweak it a bit.
Yeah, you do that. Twins, Cap, twins. Why do I keep doing this?
I'll kill you!
I know exactly how he feels, and I worry about getting fired from this job.
It's a pain in the ass.
Change in command, Star Trek Online's anniversary, and more in the news. Tonight's news is sponsored by Rice-A-Roni. Yes, Rice-A-Roni, the Starfleet Academy treat, independently shown to help cadets on shore leave get their Horgon. Rice-A-Roni, a subsidiary of Chelaski Industries LLC, this product has not been verified to help cadets get their Horgon. And now, the news. Change in command. Yes, it is official that Dan Stahl has stepped down as executive producer of Star Trek Online to take over production of an as-yet unnamed project at Cryptic. He has been replaced by the formerly referred to emergency holographic executive producer Stephen D'Angelo, or, as some of us around the office are now calling him, D''AN. Some of you older listeners will remember Dan as the emergency holographic executive producer during the run-up to the free-to-play release, those dark times that some refer to as the content drought. So far, he has only stated that his intention is to put a focus on cleaning up and polishing existing content while at the same time releasing new content into the game. It is early enough in his tenure that we have no idea what will actually transpire, but we will, of course, watch accordingly. Star Trek Online featured in Star Trek the Magazine. The winter 2014 issue of Star Trek the Magazine has a feature article for the Foundry spotlighting missions from the late H2O Rat, Dioxium, and Captain Revo. This issue should be on newsstands now. Come for the Foundry feature, stay for the interesting articles contained within. Oh, and there's a new entry in their ongoing original fiction for Star Trek Online as well. It's worth checking out. Star Trek Online's 4th anniversary. That's right. It's been almost 4 years since the game first hit the internets officially. This year, as a run-up to the official day, which as I recall is February 2nd, C-Store items will be given away daily from Monday, January 27th through January 29th. Then the real anniversary event starts with the release of Season 8.5 and a new anniversary episode featuring Tim Russ of Voyager fame, reprising his role as now Admiral Tuvok. Players will be able to play this mission and the associated daily to earn what are apparently being referred to as commendations towards the new anniversary ships, which, while the details have not been released on these, do have the moniker of a science destroyer. And now more on Season 8.5. The Klingon war missions for the Federation chain have seen a much-needed facelift. These missions have been brought more in line with the recently created Romulan and Klingon faction missions, and are in general a great improvement over their predecessors. The Undine have been updated. A pass was made of these NPCs to update their mechanics, improve their AI and looks. They are now smarter, faster, and more deadly. The ship management system saw numerous updates. It is now possible in sector space or in space around the various faction homeworlds to change out what ship you're flying on the fly. Additionally, a quick slotting system will be implemented that will allow for you to quickly move items from your inventory into your ship slots, be it weapon or device. Also, a preset loadout system will be implemented that will allow for mass changeouts of the entire setup on the fly with predetermined systems. A small craft PvP mode is added. This will allow players to fly shuttles, fighters, and yachts, and earn credits towards PvP daily. I believe this is a 5x5 map, and it is set around the Breaking the Planet. The event system is also seeing a revamp. This will change the way the old calendar event system worked, rescheduling how they appear and increasing the rewards for some. Additionally, this will also remove the hourly setup in favor of this new system. This has not really been implemented for view yet, and I don't know if this will go in with 8.5 right away, but stay tuned. All of this is set to go live, or some of it is set to go live, come January 30th. With the release of 8.5, the Voth lockbox will also be going away as the official lockbox du jour. It's too soon to speculate what the next lockbox will be, possibly an Undine one, but if lockboxes is your thing, it's time to collect more of them now to save, to trade, or just to open. A new Fleet Spire project was also released. The most recent release adds captured tech to be displayed around your Fleet Spire. And now, over to Kirkdroid with an announcement.
In related Foundry news, Starbase UGC has created a forum for Foundry authors to post their missions and share Foundry tips and tricks. The main benefit of the forum is that you can post pictures, which you can't do at the official STO forums, at least not in the Foundry section. One of the things that I'm trying to do is to use the new forum as an asset database. For example, I've made a visual index of the 125 sky backdrops. So if you want a quick and easy way to browse the exterior skies, just visit that thread. I plan to make a similar guide to interior backdrops and space backdrops, so Foundry authors won't waste a lot of time simply hunting for a backdrop to use on a set. We'd like to see others help build related guides. For example, you guys and gals know the coordinates to precisely line up walls and other props. Share the information. Share the information so that we have different reference guides of shared knowledge. It will save all of us a lot of time if we had a place that told us that generic wall 03 is exactly such and such coordinates in order to perfectly line up a set of walls to make a corridor. So please help. We'll all benefit from some kind of reference guide that tells us the exact measurements of doing the math for the X, Y, and Z values. So please register and help out with this task. Welcome to this edition of Fat Assets. I'm running out of cryptic social zones, so we're going to take a look at Memory Alpha, which is probably the ugliest cryptic social zone, at least in my opinion. Well, it's not ugly per se, but it doesn't feel very Trek-like to me. But since we already have so many science props from Memory Alpha, it might be nice to look to see what's missing, although not a single one of my picks have been added to the Foundry. So for what it's worth, here's my top 10 picks for Memory Alpha.
Number 10.
These crossbeams. I'm not sure what we'd use them for, but I'm sure that we'd use them to make our custom maps a little less like boxes from Doom and Wolfenstein. It's one of those simple details that could go a long way.
Number 9.
The satellite. You're probably thinking we already have it, and yes we do, but we don't have it as an NPC costume. If we had it as an NPC costume, we could make the satellite orbit using patrols, and that would be really cool.
Number 8.
This pillar with the new LCARs. Perhaps this is already in the Foundry and I haven't found it, but it seems much nicer than many of the existing pillars, which have no LCARs. Of course, it would also be nice to give the player a ladder so that he or she can use the damn thing.
Number 7.
This floor, sure, it's kind of a funky floor that might seem odd on a ship setting or on a space station, but any floor is a good floor. At least I wouldn't be building a starship corridor out of slabs of stone, even if I had a funky floor that looked stupid.
Number 6.
This floor, it's probably one of the most generic and useful of textures. If we could get a content artist to texture a 100 by 100 primitive building block with this texture, it would really help us build better custom sets.
Number 5.
These pillars, we have so few props with baked-in animations, so I could see these pillars being used on all kinds of sets.
Number 4.
The great big globe thingy. This could be an evil supercomputer or some kind of tactical display in an astrometrics lab. It would be cool to have it in the Foundry. At least do it for Helna.
Number 3.
This pillar. I like it. It's neat. We'd put it in walls or corridors to make our sets feel more dynamic and more detailed.
Number 2.
This wall. You're probably thinking that's a weird choice for number 2. Well, yeah, but it's a wall, and any wall is a good wall, and we need walls. So yeah, that's my number 2. We like walls.
And number 1.
And my number 1 pick for Memory Alpha is the planet. I've spoken to multiple authors who've wanted to use Memory Alpha for custom sets and space battles, and although we have some doors available, there's no prop for the planet. I mean, think about this, Cryptic. This is supposed to be the heart of Starfleet R&D, and we can't have a battle there with an invasion force trying to steal the secrets of Starfleet. Please fix that. We can make Memory Alpha an exciting place instead of what it is now. And those are my top 10 picks for Memory Alpha. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Why don't we start off, for those listeners who don't quite know who you are, because I'm sure there'll be some people, do you want to sort of tell us what you do on Star Trek Online from day to day, or just in general?
Well, as you said, I'm the lead designer on Star Trek Online, and that means that the design department reports to me, and I report to the executive producer, me and the other leads, the software lead and the art lead. So I'd like to think of myself as chief tactical officer. And while the engineering lead is like chief engineer and the art lead is chief science officer, and we all report to the captain. I'm in charge of taking the company and the executive producer's directions, strategic directions, and turning them into tactical decisions on exactly what we're going to do, what ships we're going to make, what missions we're going to make, based on the resources that production and the executive producer gives us. And not to say at all that those decisions are entirely up to me. All the leads and everybody is still a very collaborative process. Executive producer has creative ideas, and the other leads have creative ideas, and all the individual designers have creative ideas. So my job is to basically train and mentor and steer what the designers are doing. So we have a plan, say we're going to make a ship or we're going to make a mission, and it's up to me to set a framework as far as we want to have an escort ship, and it's going to be based on the Alachi, or we're going to do a mission that is based on that's going to take this. This is the overarching story arc for this season, and we need 10 missions, and this mission is going to be this segment. Now, the designers will go and flesh out the details, and then they'll present that to me and the other leads, and then we'll steer that and kind of offer guidance and direction, just like maybe a director might do. Mm-hmm. So I no longer myself implement much data. I used to. I made most of the early ships in the game, and a lot of the early designs and critters when the game was much smaller, the team was much smaller, but individually actually contribute very little implementation of the data at this point.
You said that you're basically like the tactical officer, essentially, and that you have some influence over design decisions and that sort of thing. So who is in charge of the Foundry then, I suppose? We'll jump straight in there. Or who's leading sort of the day-to-day efforts on the Foundry? Because we've seen tweets from you, and I think it was back in October, if I'm right, saying that you're having meetings with the Neverwinter team and the other members of the Foundry team. So I was wondering if you could sort of fill us in more on how that all works and who's in control of that day-to-day.
Sure. Well, the people in charge of the Foundry, that it's kind of flipped back and forth a little bit. At one point, there was just a separate Foundry team, part of the core team of Cryptic Studios. So Cryptic Studios has a Neverwinter team, a Star Trek Online team, and a Champions Online team, and then teams that work on other projects, or other unannounced R&D projects. But there's also a core team, mostly engineers of core, and they, for instance, those resources and tools and features that are used by all the projects, like the graphics engine or the tools, designer tools. So there's a core team, networking, and that sort of stuff. And part of that team was the Foundry team for a while. And while the Foundry guys set up the Foundry for Star Trek Online, and then moved over to Neverwinter. And it was because Neverwinter was the inspiration for building the Foundry, because when we got the Neverwinter license, we knew one of the big things about the Neverwinter franchise is building your own dungeons. So it says, well, we got to build something like that. And so we built it first for Star Trek Online, and then what we learned from that, we applied to Neverwinter. So that was a core team. Eventually, that team actually just got folded into Neverwinter. If I'm not mistaken, I don't know all the individual contributors. I'm sure people moved around a little bit. So once in a while, that team is available to help us to take some of their more advanced features that they've done on Neverwinter and put them into Star Trek Online. Now, that doesn't stop our own engineers from actually going ahead and making new features or copying features from Neverwinter. It's not as simple as copy and paste, but by copying, I mean emulating features from Neverwinter. So our engineers can actually do that themselves, but it's not their specialty. So, it's not they're not as familiar with the code. So there's always some ramp up time if they're going to take on a task. Smaller tasks are easier. Bigger tasks are best left for the people who have more experience with that. And so that's why you see the features that come into Star Trek Online tend to trickle in a lot slower, because the majority of those team members are really part of Neverwinter or have moved into or just doing something else in core. And so you have to kind of borrow them if they are available. And if we want to do it ourselves, that means with our resources, what is it that we want to invest in for this next update? That's always just a challenging endeavor. There's a lot of things we want to add, and a lot of things we want to improve to the game, and there's a lot of things everybody has that's their favorite. For you guys, obviously, Foundry is very important, and rightfully so. And for other people, it might be PvP, and for other users, it might be a new player experience or more story content. So when we face a new update, it's like, well, what do we want to spend our resources in, and what can we get help from other departments? And then that's when productions and executive producers generally make those decisions. And once those decisions are made, it's up to the leads, like myself and the engineering lead and the art lead, to execute those decisions. So who's in charge of Foundry? Executive producers, because it's up to them to decide what goes in. What we can do as leads say, these are the features we'd like to do. These are how long it will take. What do you approve? And as far as who can do them, it's largely the Foundry experts over in Neverwinter, or our engineers who are quite capable but may not be as familiar with the Foundry innards. I hope that answers your question.
It does.
It's always a business. It's always a business strategy when it comes right down to it. It's like, what is going to be the best business strategy for this next 3 months, next 6 months, next year? And those things are planned very tightly for the next 3 months and very loosely for the next year. And they keep coming into focus. And we're getting better at scheduling more tightly further out. So we have a much better plan. Usually we plan far out. By the time we get 3 months closer to it, we've already changed directions, but we're actually getting much better. We're getting stuff done. We have stuff done now already for season 9 and season 8.5 is not, and season 8.5 is not even out. So
I bet that makes you all breathe a bit of a sigh of relief.
it is. It makes well, because we've done in the past, we've got stuff that is going out where it's still being worked on the night before, and then people at midnight are just scrambling to finish it, and then it just goes out. So, as we've gotten more and more resources from Perfect World, because Star Trek's become more and more successful, we've been able to give things more time and start getting ahead of things. First, we were doing a lot of catch up, and now we're actually getting ahead of things. So it's a really good place to be in right now.
Yeah, sounds it.
What is the plan for the Foundry? You said there's not much happening. What is happening?
Well, what we did do, and I sent a few months back, is take a look at some of the things that we could do. And some of the features that we recently released, for instance, was the tagging and categorization that went out for the combat mission or story mission that I noticed a lot of Foundry authors and Foundry players really wanted. So I kind of made a big voice about, I think that's probably something that we can do pretty simply. I hope you guys can and then I think that will get a pretty good bang for the buck. I know that they are working on a couple other features that should be out soon. By soon, I mean but within a few weeks to a few months tops. There is, I think they're working on potentially follow an author tech. So you can subscribe to an author. So you can sort by author, and you can get a notification when an author has released a new piece of content. I don't know the details of the feature, but it's called follow author tech. I know that that's currently being worked on.
Nice.
And I also know that campaign tech is currently being worked on. So an author can make a campaign. I know Neverwinter has a similar feature to that. But it basically is, you can make, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, or whatever, how many parts of your mission. So when you finish one, you can get, and it's just like, this campaign. I want to follow Cerebus Films, arc, whatever. And and it will be, so you can make a story arc. Those are 2 features that I've been told are currently a work in progress. And so hopefully you should see them within a reasonable amount of time. There are other things that may happen that have been on the list of hey, these are things that we really want to get, but are currently not scheduled. Brandon and I, if you know Brandflakes, were just talking recently about how can we get more art assets into the game, because I think that'd be a pretty straightforward thing. And unfortunately it's not as straightforward as it sounds, but that an artist or somebody has to go in, and I'm not exactly sure what they need to do, but they just need to tag them, and they need to set them up on a grid, and they need to do something to them and then publish them. And then usually it's not just one object, it's usually a suite of objects. So it takes a little bit of time, but Brandon and I were kind of thinking about, is there any way that we could get some skunk work team and just come in on a Saturday and just get some more assets into the game? So just someone doing it on their own time kind of thing. Because, the people who would do that are generally going to be character artists or environmental artists. And, well, they're packed. For instance, we're talking about how can we want to get an Intrepid ship interior into the game, right? That's going to be huge because we're doing more Delta Quadrant stuff. But that actually takes 60 man days to do that. That's 12 weeks for one artist to do. And so that's a lot of work. And that means that is 12 weeks that someone isn't doing tagging Foundry assets, right? So their time is at a premium. And so that's why we're seeing whether or not we can find ways to squeeze more of that in. The biggest feature that I want to see, but I couldn't tell you when it's going to happen, is I want to get that 3D nudger that Neverwinter has, so you can edit your map in 3D. I don't necessarily see that. That was a pretty monumental task from the way I understand it to get that into the game. Eventually see it happening, but it's certainly not scheduled. Smaller features like maybe fixing snap to grid features, or here's one that I really want to get in. I think shouldn't be too hard. It'd be getting MacGuffins. Just call them MacGuffins. So if an author wants to say have an object that is go and collect this hat and deliver it to Picard or something like that. So that way you would be a library of these bind on pickup items that you would collect from a mission and then would be consumed when you turn it in to the mission giver for your prize. A key, gold key, red key, blue key, green key. But are a library of those kind of objects.
It's actually something like that exact thing was something we've been talking about for a long while, actually since Neverwinter came out.
Yeah.
And we noticed that they had the ability to, you could pick up the item, and then you could run a logic test to see if you have that item.
Yeah.
Or if the player is holding that item, then present this piece of dialogue, etc., etc. And at least to me and a few others, it's that sort of thing would be incredible for STO to have, because it would then allow us to create truly branching missions and things like that, simply because we could, rather than having to rely on the player to select the right immersion breaking option for dialogue every time they go onto a map, we could just test, okay, did they pick up this? Oh, then we give them this dialogue, and this happens on this map.
Yeah.
So
I think it's something to be very useful. It's when it comes down to it, it's probably 3 to 5 days, so a week of someone between art and engineering. Maybe probably a little bit of work from design. So it's something that is on the list of telling you things that are kind of like on the short list of things that we've got our eyes on, of things we want to do. There's like another one on the short list, which might actually be fairly trivial to do, is what we call placing job nodes. So that way you can tell an NPC to walk over and start clicking on a console and interact with the console, right? And start typing on the console. It's something we use, like when you see a character, you'll be talking with someone, he'll walk over and start typing on the keyboard, or sit down in a chair, the job nodes. I think that might be something that would be fairly easy to expose. I could see that happening, because it's a pretty easy task from what I've been told. I'm not sure where that is on the schedule. That's about mostly what I know about that. I think the big news is, campaign tech and follow the author, which are kind of go hand in hand nicely, I think. The big one that is the big pie in the sky is the 3D nudger, because that's probably close to a month's worth of work, maybe 3 weeks of work for the engineering team to do.
Recently, Stephen D'Angelo just took over as the executive producer for Star Trek Online again.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, and just recently, he stated that he does have a preference for polish and bug fixes for various systems in the game. Will that bear fruit anytime in the near future for any of the Foundry-related bugs, such as free cam or any of the maps that are broken?
Probably. Now, it's as far as where those fall on the schedule, those are all engineering-related tasks. So, one of the things that he's big on is saying what are the things that need to be fixed, and what are the things that we need to just make better in the game. And they're big ones, right? There's crafting's a big one, and PvP's a big one, and like we just got the ship swapping technology, which is going to be huge for the game that's coming out with 8.5. People should probably saw the blogs about that. And so there's a general kind of energy about wanting to improve the quality of every aspect of the game, including the Foundry. So when he says that, I believe him, and that's about making general fixes and improvements about all these things that are just not working right. And so that's a big difference than introducing new features, right? We add new features, we usually add new bugs when those new features come with them. So his first plan is to try to improve the bugs and get rid of all the quirkiness and things that just are orphans, and then start building on that stronger foundation with new features that are built with a higher level of quality. I couldn't tell you what is the schedule for bug fixing for those sort of things. I wish I could tell you more. I know that is part of his strategy, but it's entirely an engineering-based scheduled task. As you know, I'm the designer. As the lead designer, I focus purely on the design tasks. So I'm trying. What I hope to accomplish is to try to get you as much inside information that I have that I overhear. But I work so little with the Foundry. The most that I usually do with the Foundry in the designers when we make a new critter group like the Voth is that I can go and make sure that critter group gets put into the Foundry. So that's about the most that design interacts with the Foundry, is getting those sort of assets in there.
As a game design production student over here, I'm learning a lot about time management and really seeing how it all comes together is just absolutely crazy when you think about how truly talk about man hours and things like that, or rather man days, entire work days and months. So it sort of feeds into the question of how does the team prioritize the Foundry in respect to other parts of the game at the moment? How much time do you think that the the team's going to be able to dedicate to the Foundry as opposed to other parts of the game at the moment? Because we've seen little bits and pieces over the past year, 2 years, but it's really been quite little. I mean, I know other parts of the game have taken priority, and as they should have, some parts were probably worse off than the Foundry, but now we're at the stage where the Foundry just hasn't really had much new improvements or bug fixes in quite a while. So how do you see that all panning out?
Sure. Well, that's fair, and I think your assessment is accurate. I don't want to come and sugarcoat it and say that everything is fine and everything is coming. I think that the Foundry, like any other feature, is measured against this, the same set of standards as any other feature. And as we go forward with any update, that we put everything on the table that we want to do. And everybody wants to add more things to the Foundry, and everyone wants to add things to PvP and to crafting and to everything. But there's always a goal of, okay, what is this going to do for the game? And how can we, because a lot of this also comes down from, from CEOs and from Perfect World as far as what is the goal for this update? Is this goal for this update about acquisitions, getting new users coming in and making sure that they stay in the game? Is this goal about reacquisitions, like bringing old people back to the game? Or do we need to get more retention? And those are all driven by metrics. So people are always watching the metrics as far as how many people are coming into the game and leaving, and how many people are in the game and not staying around anymore, and how long has it been since people have not logged back in even though they're regular users, and how much money are people spending. And so the strategies start from those metrics. It's like, we're using a lot of our regular players. We need to get some retention stuff going on in the game. Or we're losing, people are no longer playing reputation systems. So let's do something to do that. Let's get people to play that. Because we got 40,000 people came into the game this month, but only 10,000 stayed or something. And that's really low. There must be something. Where are people dropping off? So if they start looking for metrics, okay, people made it to this far in the tutorial, or they made it this far into this mission, they got stuck. Is there something wrong with this mission? We need to update this. So that's why you see things like lots, when we added the fleet systems and lots of endgame. When you added a feature like Legacy of Romulus, right, that whole update, that was a huge boon for us, right? A lot of people new people came to the game. A lot of old people came back to the game. That was a purely reacquisition strategy. There was no endgame. There was no retention associated with that update. But we'd already built a huge retention strategy with our reputations and fleet systems before that. We see that update, when you look at the numbers, like, ooh, this huge big spike of new people coming into the game, but not making it sticky. So then what can we do if we want to make a sticky retention? So these are all the things that kind of goes through, the leads and the executives and the strategists, the perfect roles, like what we need to do. And they do the same thing with money. What are people buying? What is it people like to spend money on? What is it that people might repeat buy? And what are the big things that people buy, and how often you want to do that? That's what everything is measured against. So everything that is done is, how will this add to the health of the game? So you're seeing right now some people, now we just added like a huge update to the early, we redid the Federation tutorial, and we redid a lot of the beginning early missions of the Federation content. And soon we'll be giving some attention to Earth Space Dock. There's an attempt to make the game more sticky for new users. Well, I think we could do better at how many people stay in the game. But when you do things like, like PvP, a lot of huge community wants to engage in that, or the Foundry, right? Bottom line is like, how many people are playing that? How much more retention we're going to get out of that? And how much more do we make money out of that? Do we get money? Now, money isn't always measured on direct spending, but it's also measured on how long people play. If people play for a long time, they tend to spend more money, especially if they're engaged in a community, then they tend to spend more. So at some point, there's the argument, it's a chicken and the egg. If you add more of this, then you'll get more of that. It's the same thing like Klingons, right? Like why Klingons didn't get a lot of attention for a long time. Now they have a lot of attention. So we put a lot of investment into Klingons. We brought in Michael Dorn. They all have a new tutorial. We updated the first level content. You can now play 1 to 50 as Klingons. Bottom line is, not that many more people played Klingons, right? I mean, a few more. The numbers went up a little bit, but it's not something that we disregard, but it's a pretty good chunk of the community, but it's never going to be 50% of the users. Like 50% will play Klingons, 50% Fed. Most people play Fed, right? And so that is what gauges we put, okay, let's put a little investment into clans. Did it make, we put a huge investment in there. Did it move the needle much? Not much. It was okay. It was worth doing. We'll probably continue to do little bits, but proportionally, we'll always do more for Fed. And I think that's what you're seeing with Foundry. I think that the amount of people that participate in the Foundry is not as proportional as we would like or as you guys would like. So that's why you see proportionally less effort being put into it. And so what we look for and what I like to look for is like, what kind of small quality of life improvements can we add that are inexpensive and that we can get a good return on? So hence you're getting lots of little features of quality of life, like the tagging and sorting of different types of story mission or PvP, or combat mission or whatever all the different categories, or things like follow your author or campaign modes. These are small, good quality of life features that I think everyone would enjoy, but really doesn't cost much as far as like production and executives don't really worry about, oh my God, you guys are spending a month on this feature. We're probably not going to get a return on that. No, we're only spending about 2 days on it. Okay, that's fine. That'll be great. Everyone will be happy with that. So we're always trying. That's where it happens. And unfortunately, yes, it's a business decision. And if it was up to me, I'd love to add a lot more into there. And you know what really hurts us? It's those damn exploiters. Those damn exploiters hurt us so much. They hurt the community so much because I want to put more rewards into Foundry missions, right? And so every time close to it, someone finds another exploit. It's like, damn it, we can't add, because that really hurts the game. There were some really bad exploits, and I think we caught them all, and another one crept up, and we just squashed it again. So now we got to let it sit and bake for a while. And people exploit it for the dilithium. That's the primary way they exploit it. I'd love to get items in there. I'd love to get more rewards, something, even make custom rewards. We even talked about making a reputation for Foundry. So people could you just play Foundry and you get Foundry marks or whatever, and you unlock, Foundry stores. So right now people are trying to find exploits for marks. But if we raise the level cap, people would start trying to find exploits for XP, and there was XP exploits before, and we squashed them, but they're not focusing on those anymore. They'll start finding exploits for that, or finding exploits for marks, so we put marks in it. So it's really dangerous to add that, and that I think would be a number one driver for the Foundry. If there were better rewards, more people would play the Foundry, for sure, because that's what people do. People play these games to get rewards. But we're really stingy with the rewards because people find exploits. And every time we add a little bit more, they find more exploits. So that's a tricky balance, because if I put an Omega set, if you played the Foundry, I guarantee you someone would figure out how to get that Omega set in a day. But people would play the Foundry guaranteed, right?
Yes, and then, to get those things.
Lots of people would play, and then we could add, and then it says, wow, look at all these people playing the Foundry. We should add more Foundry stuff. But as soon as you do, then we have to roll it back, and people get mad that we remove something from the Foundry. And so that's a really little dangerous thing. It's really not an uncommon problem when it comes to games and MMOs or anything that has user-generated content. I remember when I worked on The Sims Online before I joined Cryptic. And The Sims Online, or before it was ever released, they had the policy of we will react to the community. If there's a problem that someone does something bad, we'll just react, as opposed to being proactive as far as not allowing certain things. And so the day it went into, because like in The Sims Online, you could go into like this neighborhood view and you could see the roofs of everybody's houses over in the neighborhood of Street View. So you could see what everyone built their houses, and then you say, oh, that's a nice house. Let me go zoom into that house and they'll visit that person. Well, within the first week of releasing The Sims Online into beta, when you go into neighborhood view, people started doing tile mosaics on the roofs. And the first thing you saw were swastikas and gay porn. People just putting all over their roofs, right? And so it's endemic with user-generated content and anonymity. So that's unfortunate, the nature of the internet, and that's something that makes a really big challenge for us. And so what ends up happening are the people who really engage in the Foundry are the people like you guys and your audience who just really have a love for it, who really just love the storytelling, love to tell stories, and love to read that fan fiction, and that's really good for Star Trek. But unfortunately, because we're still learning how to make this work, it means that it can't blossom into everything that everyone would love it to be. Does that make sense? Or did that just... Because I try not to make this sound like, marketing spiel, nonsense. I'm trying to be real with you guys.
No, in fact, you proactively answered my next question.
All right.
No, it is good to hear, as much as it might be sort of a downer for a lot of people, and to hear, it's good to hear the reality of it, and to actually hear it explained as a business point of view, or from the design point of view. It really does give us an insight into how it all works and how it is affecting the rest of the game, and how other parts of it affect the game. And really, I think we could all walk away and say, yes, it's the exploiters' fault, but we'll just blame them.
That's perfectly fine. I'm happy to do that. I'm trying to make everyone understand that it's not like, hey, we don't really care about this. It's not important. We don't care about PvPers. We don't care about Foundry. We don't care about Klingons. As designers, this is an art form for us. This is our art, and the developers have a passion for it, and and really love what they do, and we would love to do everything. But we have bosses like anyone else, and we have business strategies, and we have shareholders to answer to, and we always have to make the best business decision. And at the same time, so what we try to do is we try to do what we can, and I don't want people to come away in any way feeling a downer as far as like I'm never going to get anything. No, I think what's realistic to expect is to get little bits here and there, just kind of like, and hopefully a little bit more often than what you were getting. Just like we just released a couple features just at last update, and we got a couple more on the plate, and then we'll put a couple smaller ones on the plate after that. So I think you can look forward to smaller features trickling in, as well as bug fixes. Major features are certainly they're not. I don't foresee anything major in the immediate future.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of a few things that already exist that we just don't have yet, asset-wise. I mean,
assets would be, I think, is something that I would really just love to see you guys get more of. Is just getting some of those maps and some of those props into the game, and so we're going to try to see if we can find some skunkworky kind of ways to get those in there. But I'm not going to make any promises to that. But I know Brandon and I have been scheming about see how we can do something. But it is just unfortunately it is just a schedule hog to do so.
Yeah, it's the
Unpaid
man
internships.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll take an internship. That's fine by me.
Like all those costumes and stuff. That's they're already around.
Yeah, I know, and I appreciate that. Right? It's there. It's right there. As why can't we have that? And so I keep banging the drum, on my side, and things will just trickle in slowly.
Well, we'll certainly support you in that. Anyway, we're all in favor for more stuff.
And Brandon's a big supporter of Foundry. It's basically his initiative to do the having featured Foundry spotlights, and that's so he's one of your big supporters over here. So fortunately he's not a developer, and he doesn't even work in the same building with us. So he's over in another city at the Perfect World office because he's in that group. But there's always those champions for the Foundry still. There's also another Foundry champion that I won't say specifically, but who left the project and might be coming back. So don't mention any names, but I'll let people speculate on that. So just keep that. If you have any ideas who that might be, just don't shout it out. But you might be getting a little more Foundry champions coming.
Well, that's something for the rumor mill.
Jumping kind of sideways backwards to the tagging system, is that included in any of the metric stuff to see if that has been beneficial to Foundry authors? Is it too early to even begin to start speculating on that?
I honestly would not know. I don't even know if anyone honestly has given any thought onto how to measure that. As far as we could measure on how many things are in what category, I'm not sure what that would tell us. As far as
or whether there's been a specific increase in drive or finding since
I
suppose
you could probably measure to see whether or not more people have been playing the Foundry Foundry contents than before. I would guess that the number of people playing Foundry missions may have gone up a little bit, but not much. What probably is happening is that people are just probably enjoying it a lot more because they're getting exactly what they want. I'm willing to bet if you probably did metrics, you'd probably see overall scores of Foundry missions going up because of it, because people aren't playing something and being disappointed and giving it a 1-star because it had too much story.
Oh no, we'll always have those.
Yeah. Well, that's the argument.
Yeah, we saw a lot of good movement just based on the release of the Purity series, which, quite frankly, we still consider a big success because people are playing it and talking about it, which I think actually the talking is probably the more important part.
Yeah, I think when it comes to your original question, I mean, quality of life features are generally hard to measure, but we do know that they are improving quality of life and that they are good for the health of the game. But it gets very esoteric. As how can you measure this as far as, hey, it didn't even move, or it moved a little. Was that worth it? It says, yeah, it's probably worth it, but probably not one that you could probably measure really well. Like if we went and improved a lot of the icons in the game, which is something like, say, we would like to do, and we could spend 2 weeks for Thomas Marone, our UI artist, to updating all the icons. Would we see a needle move? Probably not. Was it a good thing? Probably was, because it just made the game, right? But would we actually see more people not leave the game? Probably not. But I think but everyone who stayed is probably having a much better experience. So those quality of life are just really hard to measure.
Yes, we appreciate his color coding.
I was confused the hell out of when I logged in and found everything on my ship was completely different. What? All these items. Oh god. It soon made sense again, but had slight panic. What's happened here?
Change is scary.
Change is scary.
Right now, when you do a search for a Foundry mission, you are limited to 50 missions coming up, even using the tags as a filter system. Is that a database limitation that was implemented that limits it to 50? Is this something that might be improved, since we're seeing other parts of the database getting optimization improvements, such as the DOF system or the number of ships we can have?
Well, I'd be purely speculating if it was a database decision. I would probably wager that it's not, that it's simply just it's probably purely a UI decision, as far as, I mean, like if you go to any search results on the internet or anything, and I know when I go to ThinkGeek and I search for Star Trek items, it shows me 25, and there's a button to show next 25 or show 50 at a time, or show all. I don't know if those are database related. Those are just, you give people too many choices and then they have choice overload. And so you want to limit people's choices, because there's probably enough to choose from there, and we want to make things more presentable and manageable. And some people can kind of handle more choices than others. So my guess is that was purely a UI decision, a usability decision that has never been thought about. Whether or not that could return more results, like show me 100 or show me all. I doubt we'd ever do a show me all, because that could be a pretty tremendous list based on whatever search criteria might be looking for. But
it used to be pretty much everything, and it would lag the hell out. But now we're limited to 50, so we've got the issue of.
So maybe there was some performance. Maybe there was some performance reasons that it was just, if it was lagging out. I am not aware of that, so I don't know. I'm only speculating, but there's probably a little bit of both. What I'm hearing you say is that you would like the ability to show more results. Say, show me 100 or so.
Well, what it partly comes down to is that authors, the list tends to get a certain amount of staticness to it, and you always see the same 50
results. Yeah.
Yes, and it in a sense it hurts younger authors who are lean and hungry and want to be noticed. So kind of sort of like the spotlight missions. All the spotlight list stays pretty much the same, so those missions always get played.
Right.
Same thing goes with the general search, that only that certain group seem to get displayed because of the star ratings and all that. If there's some way to maybe tell it to display missions I haven't played before, or some other thing to bring more from the bottom up towards the top, that would be kind of a hope.
Right. I wonder, showing something like missions I haven't played before, I don't know what that would require to do, but I wonder if we could just do something like random. Show me some random stuff, then we just pull things up at random instead of to show some more bottom.
I would be perfectly okay with a
like an I'm feeling lucky kind of.
That's what I was going for. Was I feel lucky button.
That might be interesting, to just like, I'm feeling lucky, and just like, and bring up a random, 10, 15, or even just one result. So it's just, I'm feeling lucky, and just give me a random mission. Those could be real simple quality of life things. It's worth talking about. I'm here too to see what kind of things that you guys have thoughts about that I can bring back. So that's interesting.
I'm sure we
I
can
don't
give
want
you
to
a
open the
large
floodgates
list.
too much. I've seen the forum posts, so
Careful what you say here.
Yeah, that's been one of the bigger ones. Is we appreciate the effort with the tagging system, but there are lots of authors who still get unnoticed because they get buried down in the list.
Well, that's probably not different than what you see on your iTunes library, right? I mean, how do you get if you're or on a Google search results if you're not at the top? If you do a Google search results and you're not on the first page, you're probably never going to get clicked on. Or if I'm not in the first top 10, top 25 on the top games, I'm probably never going to play you, right? So it's not uncommon.
Put in dilithium and improve your Metascore.
We spoke to, I believe it was Rob over on the Neverwinter Foundry team about this time last year. Yeah. And we were talking about the tagging system and things and how they were implementing it and reasons behind making it driven by the players as opposed to being set or even just sort of suggested by the authors. And we sort of got this sense of it being a really user-driven thing that they'd be able to add tags and like their own custom tags and things like that. But in my experience now, playing with it with at least STO, it seems limited in both in the tagging options we have, and also, for instance, new missions by authors. They just don't get the initial drive of people to play those missions to then even be able to start tagging them. So we have the basic things of story and combat, but then really after that, there's not much sort of customization in the tagging. Is that something that you could see changing in the future? Because at this point, it's sort of you have something that you're relying on the players to play in the first place to then give it a tag that will hopefully then allow other people to find it better in the future. But you've still got that barrier.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the reasons were entirely. I speculate on why they were done that way, and if you talk to Rob, I'm sure he gave you his best answer. I actually, when bringing the system over to Star Trek, had assumed it was actually an author-driven tagging system, that the author would tag it, and it says, no, it's the users who tag it. And I said, oh, okay, that's interesting. And I presumed that the reason that is because, well, then you're going to get a bunch of authors and I'm just going to tag everything, right? So that way I show up in the results of everything, right? And so, because somebody would do that, right?
Yes,
I'm story and combats and whatever other because there's like 6 categories now, I think, right? Is it? I can't remember. I remember what they were.
It's 6, yeah.
6. It's but every mission is going to come up with the same 6 tags, so that way they show up in the results, right? I mean, that's just what people do. So
I think we're still finding that, even though it's supposed to be there, so that not every mission shows up with that search.
Yeah, but I think that
all
everything
players will
can
tag everything anyway.
Players can tag that, and of course the author can go and play his own mission with another character, and go and do that. I think it's a level removed and a level of policing that makes it not so a step removed, so that way the author just can't do it that way. I still would like the author to be able to do it, even if the author could only choose 1 or 2 categories for their mission, right? And just say you could go ahead and put 2 tags on there. I would be a supporter of doing that. I don't think if I'm personally a supporter of adding more categories. Neverwinter has a lot more categories, but after a while, they just start becoming noise. I mean, if you're already seeing people tagging using all 6 categories, what useful it will be if they're tagged with all 12 or all 24 categories. And when we looked at them all, it's like, well, there was all these suggestions as, well, yeah, that's just kind of like this. It's just kind of like that. And it's like, well, what does that really mean? What is an espionage type mission? It's just RPG. And so role playing and or story driven. And so they're almost more like they were all just subcategories or subcategories. I'm a big fan of trying to reduce the number of choices because more choices just start to overwhelming. And I think that the more advanced somebody is in the system, the more that they want more fine level of control, in this case more categories. But I think that those sort of things makes it less accessible to someone who's coming into the system for the first time and searching and says, well, what's the difference between role playing and story driven and diplomacy? It's like, well, that's a level of choice that I really don't understand or know the difference between, and then it causes people to have choice paralysis. I'm less of a fan of adding more categories. I am fans of doing things like having things more advanced and perhaps having those if they were in a level removed, a little more obscure, so the new player could come in and just see basic categories, and then an advanced player says, "Let me see the advanced searches," and here's all these other little options. So I'm not opposed to doing things like that when it's a little hidden from the average player. But adding new categories is really easy. That's really just a list. So just a text list that we can just add to. Adding subcategories are hidden. Well, that's UI work, and it's just a little harder. Allowing authors to do it, and that's a political battle that I have to fight, right? To see whether or not someone wants to go ahead and support that, and then engineering time and UI time to do that. But I do think that an author should be able to tag, 1 or 2 tags for their own thing. So that's to get it started, right? And then everyone else can just start adding, going ahead and voting it themselves, and then they may agree or disagree with that author, and that's fine. But at least it gets put on the list, right?
Other than the anniversary ships, are there, you don't have to say what, but are there more ships planned in the near future to be released into the game?
There are always more ships planned for the near future. It is our number one business model. So there's a very well thought out plan when it comes to ships. And there's a recent blog that if you or your audience have read about the process on making ships, and it goes many months in advance, that planning for it. So it's a really, really interesting read if you really want to read some very detailed, nitty gritty behind the scenes on how new ships are made. Yeah, we've got the anniversary ship that's coming out, and then there'll be a new lockbox that'll be coming out with the anniversary. So there'll be some new ships, one in the lockbox, one in the Lobby store. There's an IP ship. Here's a sneak peek. I won't tell you what it is, but there's an existing IP ship that's never been released in the game. The model's already built, it's ready to go. And we haven't built the power for it. And so we're looking for a place to release that. It's a little more obscure of a ship. It's not like, a Galaxy class or an Intrepid.
Oh Lord, it's the Jaeger.
But it'll never be the Jaeger.
What about the USS Horta?
The Horta, yeah, sure.
Oh no, we're not going to torture him with the no kill eye.
I'm not going to spoil what it is, but
No.
but I'm just saying that there's already one there. There's also there's a plan for a Klingon ship coming out. There's still a plan. It's always been a plan for a upgraded refit Negvar that has been on the plan to release that. And so Klingons will eventually get that ship. There's some other ships that will be coming out in February that I don't want to say what they are. They're more secret. February, that will be in the C-Store. There'll be a metric ton of them coming out by the end of the year. But you can, whether it's in the C-Store or in the Lockbox or in the Fleet Store, everyone can pretty much look forward to seeing a ship every month. There's something that'll be featured. And finally, this has just been my thing. Finally, on the schedule, is actually scheduled, is to refit the Galaxy X Dreadnought. So that way you can use saucer separation, and to fix the saucer separation on the Galaxy and the Prometheus, so it uses the technology that the Odyssey does, so it doesn't have to stop while launching its saucer. So those are finally on the schedule, and so we'll have big fanfare of that when that comes out.
I was about to say the forums just suddenly let out a sigh of.
The design's been done. I did a screenshot of it like a year or two, almost 2 years ago, of it working. But the art isn't fully supported for it. So I've been just waiting for that to just fit time in the schedule. The ship team are in high demand because that is our number one revenue generator, whether directly or indirectly, even though directly through C-Store purchases or indirectly through lockboxes or Fleet Store. So they driving playtime and play sessions, and so they're a huge driving force for us. And so the ship team are always highly in demand, and there's always a very well thought out strategy as for their release. So,
and based on that list alone, it certainly sounds like that is the case.
There's that and more. So there's I do know that you will see when we do more Delta Quadrant stuff, you will probably see an upgrade to the Intrepid. I want to get the Aero shuttle launching from the Intrepid. I want to see the Dauntless released, as well as the Janeway's Type 9 or Type 12. I can't remember if it was a Type 9 or Type 12, the Voyager shuttle that Janeway was flying in the season finale of Voyager. So, so lots of ship love. That's a topic I could talk about all day.
I seem to remember the last time that we had you on. We talked about a very specific type of new ship that we certainly definitely want it. This I really look forward to potentially being a thing one day. The broadside cruiser. The last time we had
the broadsiding, yeah. That's another technology feature that keeps getting kicked down the road. The reason why that's been really tricky to do, because it's not tricky from design or even from the ship team itself. Well, actually, a little bit from the ship team is that the effects guys, of which we until recently only had one effects artist. Every single visual effect in the game has been for the last 2 years has been from one effects artist. We finally hired a second effects artist, and he's great. He's fast, and so now it's really going to help us a lot. For instance, cannons are designed to fire from cannon nodes on all ships, and so now they have written down in their data. You fire this cannon comes from heavy left, and this one comes from heavy right, and the dual cannon comes from dual left, and this one comes from dual right. Now, every single one of those cannons in both primary mode, scatter volley, and rapid fire, which are all separate effects, have to all be updated to also be okay to fire from port left and port right. And when they go port, they're all probably going to be 4 sets of port nodes and 4 sets of starboard nodes. So that way they don't all fire from the same, like in the front, it's okay if they just kind of fire from like 2 big guns, but on the sides you want them to be more like Battlestar Galactica-like, so they're more like little cannons dashed along the side. So it's a lot of retrofitting those, and the same thing for torpedoes, right? Because torpedoes are only set to fire forward and aft, and the beams are set for forward and aft, so they all have to be updated. The cannons happens to be the most expensive ones because there's 2 effects each. So they all have to be updated to say no, it's okay to be using these nodes, and so now the ship artists have to make all new effect nodes, and I think there's something like 64 effect nodes on a ship, and port and starboard ship is going to increase it to I think 256 nodes or something crazy like that. So it's going to be a lot of nodes. So so it's a lot of data work, but I do think that it's important to do because it'll give us another axis of different combinations of ships to do, which will be interesting for people. So
we from Primetime definitely want to wish Cryptic a happy 4th anniversary, which compared to the forums is 3 years longer than you were supposed to be here.
Well, thank you very much. It's been great, and I appreciate all that you guys do, and carrying the torch for the Foundry, and so that's something that everybody at Cryptic Studios appreciates. And despite what the forums might say and doom and gloom and all these sort of things, that the bottom line is that last year was Star Trek in every measurable way the best year we've ever had, in number of players that are playing, the time people are playing, the amount of money that the game brought in. It just had a phenomenal year, and all of that translates into more people and more resources to do it again and again. We are a really, really important title for a Perfect World and for Cryptic, and it's going to continue to get lots of resources, and we're going to continue to invest in the game, and we're just going to, and all indications is that 2014 will be just as good, if not better, than 2013. So there's no decline. I want to tear my hair out when I see someone say, everyone knows Star Trek's dying. Says, what are you possibly basing it on? It's like, are you kidding me? And we're doing so much. And we keep hiring, and the numbers just keep going up, and it's stronger than ever by far in every measurable way. You don't see MMOs grow that much, and Star Trek keeps growing. It just keeps growing. That's a promise. That is a fact of what has happened. They just don't. MMOs just don't do that. It's very rare. They have a peak, and then they level out, and they slowly decline, and then you're always trying to keep ahead of that. And certainly that happens as far as like there's, people stop playing for a while, but then they come back. And so our strategy is to keep coming back and keep making that grow. And so far we've been very lucky and very successful, confluence of whatever it is that we've been able to do. It's not always too easy to kind of write a Bible on this is how you do it and how you can reproduce it, but it's been working, and we're going to keep doing that. So don't listen to the naysayers. They have no idea what they're talking about. Honestly, do not.
This is sort of the time in the show where we'd usually hand over to our guests, and if there's anything else you want to say about the game in general or to the audience, the time is for you now.
On Thursday, This following Thursday, the 30th, is our anniversary. It'll be season 8.5. And so the big deal will be the anniversary episode for season 4, featuring Tim Russ as Tuvok. So that's going to be an amazing story. It continues the story that Worf left off in Sphere of Influence in October. It's going to be a pretty epic story. It's going to continue our story of what's going on in the Star Trek universe. And Tim Russ will be back in season 9 to continue that story. There's a handful of new features, including the ship management features allow you to swap ships out in sector space or any social zone, as well as loadouts. So you'll be able to predefine your loadouts, and we'll be raising our ship slot cap from about 25 to 50. This weekend, I'm going to be going to Earth Space Dock and setting up all my loadouts on all my ships that you know, ships that I'm spoiled. I get to access to any ship I want, but some of them I haven't even played in game on my main character. So I'm looking forward to, because, you know, everybody knows it's time consuming to move all your gear over and set up your bridge officer, set up your power tray. Well, that will be a thing of the past. You'll be able to go to a ship and say, this is all the gear I want, this is the bridge officer loadout, this is the duty officer loadout I want, this is what the power tray looks like, and then save it, and then make the next ship, and then use whatever gear you want and save it, and then I can go out in the sector space and swap from my Vesta to my Armitage, or to my Andorian Escort, or to my Carfi, or just swap back and forth, and it's be seamless. So I'm expecting to see a lot of people standing in the shipyard this weekend making their ship loadouts. And it's going to really be a game changer, because you can only swap your ships in a public zone, but you can swap your loadouts anywhere. So that's going to be a huge game changer, to be able to say, hey, we need a escort for this mission. We need I'm in my science vessel. No problem. I'm in my escort, and I'll come and I'll join you. Or in this task force, it's like, oh no, it's the Voth are attacking. Let me swap to my Voth zone. Oh, I'm gonna play PvP. Boom. Let me switch to my PvP build. Boom, and go and play PvP. It's just really going to make the game so much more accessible. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So everybody should be checking that out, and look forward to Tim Russ. That's just going to be great. It's going to be really fun. And of course, the new lockbox will be out on Thursday too. So it's going to be a big weekend. So
thank you very much, Al, for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and I hope we'll see you again sometime in the future.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure. And again, to you and to all the Foundry communities and the authors, I really appreciate what you do. You guys do a fantastic job, and thanks for the dedication.
You know, this is getting to be a bit much. Luckily, I was just watching Law & Order reruns when you called. Have you perfected the Kirkbot yet?
Hell no. Androids are so 2413. Holograms are the way to go. I just got finished installing the new 40K emitters. Those babies are so accurate, they'll reproduce the fat man down to his last freckle. The detail is unbelievable.
If you say so.
I don't have to say a word. I'll let Kirkfat do the talking.
Wow, I have to admit it. He really does look incredibly lifelike. I think he might have finally pulled it off.
What did I tell you? You should have trusted me.
Hey, Cap. Don't look now, but your holofat is shrinking.
I'm sure it's just a minor adjustment. Hang on.
The hollow matrix has been formatted.
Oh, that's much better.
Hang on. This is fixable. Just a little fine-tuning.
Well, it looks like him now. You'll just have to record the show in black and white so nobody will notice that his skin is now the color of a pumpkin.
Wait, really? I can make this work.
The hollow matrix has been formatted.
Well, now that's definitely an improvement. I completely support this particular version. Kirkfat will kill us both, of course, but wow.
The kits. We need props like this so that we can send players on fetch quests to gather data, pick up med kits,
It might be worth the
place
risk,
objects on tables,
but that voice is a
and gather
complete
clues.
turn-off.
Please add.
Jesus, Kirkfat's hot. Did I say that out loud?